Chapter 10. Pilate and Paul. It had been several days since Ananias had visited with Paul, yet with every minute that passed between visits, the more excuses he found to stay away. At first, when Jesus told him to restore Paul's eyesight, Ananias warmed to the new believer. Seeing the former Sanhedrin enforcer so vulnerable before the risen Lord caused compassion to stir in Ananias's heart. Then came fresh reports brought by the religious refugees from Jerusalem and other cities where Saul, his name before Jesus renamed him, had executed judgment. And once these people heard Saul was in Damascus, most fled the city while the few who bravely remained spoke of the Pharisees' violent atrocities. Now, whatever compassion he had for Paul dissipated among the tales of his destructive religious fervor. "Ananias, please come here." The voice of his dear wife filled the silent house. The man stood up, slowly overcoming the protests of his weary bones. With much effort, he walked into the next room. "Yes, Rachel. Is everything well?" Even as the words left his lips, he knew her question had more to do with his well-being. "Why haven't you gone to see him?" Rachel asked, her blue eyes piercing his veil of secrecy. "You remember what Jesus told you. Paul will pay for his deeds and serve our Lord's purpose in a way we can never comprehend." Ananias's knees buckled. Guilt and shame throbbed in his chest. She was right. She always saw right through him. Ananias responded, "You are right, my love." He donned his robe and laced up his sandals, then went out into the afternoon air. The aromas of Damascus's afternoon meals permeated his nose and throat with famished compulsions, a reminder of the fast he had prolonged with his distracted forgetfulness. After walking several minutes on the street called Main, his cousin Husan, along with a dozen young men, approached him. "Greetings, my cousin, Ananias." Husan hailed him with an overly pretentious tone. "Where are you off to in such a hurry?" Ananias belched out a false laugh. "Hurry? Do I appear to have the strength to go anywhere in a hurry?" One of Husan's companions clamored, "We know you are going to see the Pharisee. Why?" A sinister shadow clouded the air in their midst. Husan did not believe in Jesus, nor did any of his friends, yet they showed too much concern for Paul. "He is a troubled man who needs my help." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 50 demons of Damascus hovered over Husan and his companions, with a diminutive screecher named Delirious barking out orders to the demons. "Each of you can sense their bloodlust, how they long to kill and spill blood, 'cause these young men to fulfill their dark desires. First, they must scare this meek believer away from Saul of Tarsus. Then they can be unleashed on the city, and perhaps we can deliver Saul to our Lord Satan." Once Delirious finished speaking, his minions dove into Husan and his friends like birds of prey diving into the water for fish. This caused the young men to menace Ananias with snarls and barred teeth. Delirious looked intently at the old man, who did not cower before the relentless attempt at intimidation. Then he saw Ananias's eyes were closed in prayer. "Ah! Pull back. Flee the old man. He has been anointed with the power from on high." Too late. Bright light blasted from the old man's heart, and in an instant, all 50 of the harassers were dispatched back to the pits of hell. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Husan and his friends fled away from Ananias in rapid fashion, almost like they had been scared away by rabid dogs. Suddenly, the sunlight burst out in radiant flares of hope, giving him a sense that all would be made right. The remaining steps to the humble abode of Paul seemed a few mere leaps for Ananias. Before he knew it, he knocked on the door. A young woman named Beatrice peered from around the door. Her cheery visage showed nothing to him but thankfulness and love. "Brother Ananias, so good of you to come." "How is our new brother?" he asked. He walked through the doorway, then into the small home. "I know he is new to the faith, but Paul seems to know things that our teachers here in the city have not told us," Beatrice said. "What has he said?" Ananias asked. The woman's face brightened, as if lit with an unseen fire. Paul started to show how so many of the teachings of Moses foretold of Jesus. These realizations prompted Ananias to move as swiftly as his legs could carry him back to the room where Paul was staying. The smells of sweat and uneaten food assailed the old man's nose. He could not see anyone in the windowless room, so he called back to Beatrice. "Do you have a lit candle I can use?" A short time later, the faithful woman handed Ananias a small candle. Once the light filtered in, he saw two unblinking eyes staring in his direction. Tears outlined the lids of the darkened orbs, giving Ananias pause to enter the dark domain. "My dear brother, so good to see you." Paul's voice came from the body that held the eyes. His tenor carried care and concern without any of the expected condemnation that Ananias expected from a man he had neglected. "And you, my brother Paul, how has your solitude been for you?" Ananias asked. "Our Lord Jesus has spoken to me many times since the last time you looked upon me. I am in awe of his majesty and glory. He is the one and only Son of God." Paul's voice was saturated with a deep reverence, one which could only come from someone who truly knew the risen Lord of all creation. "Indeed, I cannot wait to hear your revelations," Ananias said. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The salt-saturated air made Pilate's lungs heavy, like he felt the last time he attempted to run a marathon. But Claudia enjoyed watching the waves roll in, so he endured it to see a small flicker of happiness back in her lovely eyes. They were seated in two acacia wood chairs on the part of the beach where a border of sharp grey rocks ended and a wide swathe of white sand began a 50-foot trek to the ocean. A shadow shaded Pilate's shoulder from the late morning sun, informing him of an arrival. "Lord Pilate?" A thick, husky voice came from the shadow. "Come over here and face me," Pilate said. Once the burly form of a soldier filled his gaze, Pilate spoke again. "What news do you bring?" With a few coughs to clear a nervous-sounding voice, the soldier spoke. "The merchant vessel commissioned to take you west has been seized by the Port Authority. We found a large shipment of weapons bound for Britain. Apparently, the ship's captain is not a Carthaginian, but a member of the Iceni, and he planned to aid his people in rebelling against the empire." Rage turned the veins in Pilate's neck into streams of lava. "Then remove the cargo, kill the traitorous captain, and get me a new crew for the ship. I am weary of this cursed land." A pensive stare looked back at him. "My apologies, Lord Pilate, but Commander Gaius believes there are others involved in the conspiracy. He wants to use the ship's cargo as bait to draw out the other conspirators." A rapid jolt of energy coursed through Pilate's worn body, and he pushed up from his seat with fist clenched inches away from the soldier's face. For an instant, he marveled at the physical discipline displayed by the young man, who did not flinch in the slightest from the governor's violent reaction. He lowered his fist. "When can you get me a new ship?" "The closest merchant vessel with enough space to carry you, your belongings and entourage is reported to be in Malta." This time, his anger could not be sated, and he struck the soldier. While the young man spat blood in the sand, Pilate bellowed for all on the beach to hear. "A big merchant ship will not get here for at least 40 days. By then, the late summer storms will begin." More incompetence. All this cursed land has is incompetence. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Heresy could sense Squiff had the same reaction to Pilate's outburst as he did, but he had to say something to be certain. Pilate's emotions will give us ample opportunity to open his mental wounds more tonight. "Yes," Squiff said with a lingering hiss on his lips. "I love the power they give us when they lose control of their emotions." "But neither of you truly know how to exploit this weakness." Satan's voice came from behind them, and Heresy felt terrified. He slowly turned to face the direction the Prince of Darkness' voice came from. Satan stood within arm's reach of them, manifested in a form of blinding light. Waves of liquid fire rolled up and down his entire body while his face tore at Heresy mind. Satan walked past them and stood next to Pilate, his nose within inches of the man's neck. "Both of you, come here." Heresy moved as close to Satan as he dared. With a sideways glance, he could see Squiff had complied also, though what choice did either of them have? Smell his neck, chest, and forehead, Satan commanded. After giving them a few moments to comply, he continued, "What do you notice from his odor?" Squiff spoke first. His anger has elevated his aggressiveness. He is ripe for violent temptation. Heresy saw his lord's expression and knew Squiff's response did not impress him. So he tried. Mixed in with the anger is fear. He is scared to stay here in Judea. His eyes met with Satan's for a second before he cowered and looked down, but he could sense that his answer pleased Satan. Your observations are pedestrian at best, but at least you have a basic understanding of human weakness. Pilate's anger is indeed an overreaction he is using to mask his fear. But neither of you noticed the age of the fear in his bloodstream. His fear of Judea has been with him for many years, and it is mixed heavily with guilt. Guilt from the role he played in the death of the Jewish carpenter. The last sentence caused more flames to emanate from Satan's entire body. Your wisdom is only matched by your beauty, my lord, Squiff said. You both must visit him tonight after he is asleep. Change your tactics from just whispering in his ear to swirling around him with a tempest of accusations and discouragement. This will pollute his dreams with venom that will rob him of rest. Then he will be more vulnerable. Before Heresy could look at his master again, the Lord of Hell vanished. He exhaled waves of anxiety out of his grotesque mouth. Squiff followed suit. Relief would only be for a brief time, but it felt good for the moment. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Once the day turned to night, Pilate's anger subsided enough for him to eat a meal of roasted meat, soft, chewy bread, and 2 large tankards of strong wine. After sating his appetite, the man's mind relaxed amid the soft glow of torchlight until his thoughts ventured off into slumber. Voices echoed in his head. Coward. You should have killed the carpenter with your own hands. Why do you hold on to hope that he mattered? There wasn't anything special about him. Surely your guilt will cause Jupiter to strike against you. You betrayed your God, and now he will have his revenge. There he stood in front of a white marble wall outlined in gold, which encircled several large buildings. Tall, extravagant columns were interspersed in the wall at equal intervals, and they held up a bejeweled roof that radiated all the colors of a rainbow. He approached the wall in the direction of a gate, and when he drew near, the gate opened to give him a clear view of the beautiful compound within. Trumpets sounded, and a crystalline voice heralded above the blare of the instruments. Welcome to Olympus. All hail the king of the gods, Jupiter. At the center of the complex rose Jupiter in the shape of a middle-aged man with long, wavy white hair and a thick beard to match. Bluish-white strands of lightning cracked through his arms and chest. Pilate raised up his arms in homage and yelled, "Glory and honor to Jupiter!" He heard a loud noise and turned to see the wall, and columns begin to crack and crumble. Past the crumbling wall, a red dragon sneered at Jupiter with plumes of red flame spewing from a long row of sword-shaped teeth. Jupiter shouted at the dragon, though the tumult from the destruction of the wall drowned out whatever the god said. With a mighty thrust of his right hand, the god threw a sizzling bolt of lightning at the dragon, but the projectile disappeared before it could strike its target. Then the dragon leapt with all 4 of his mighty claws onto Jupiter. Shrieks of terror shook the columns, causing them to fall. The beast leapt back into the air, its wings causing great winds to blow Pilate to the ground. With Jupiter in its claws, the dragon flew straight up into the sky while it pulled the god apart. Blood showered down on the ground in thick, gelatinous waves of crimson rain as the arms, legs, and torso of Jupiter fell into a fiery cauldron that sprung up out of the ground. For Pilate, any attack against his favored deity was an act of war, so he summoned what courage he had and sought to attack the vile beast. He found a sword girded to a belt around his waist and drew the weapon. Bolting towards the dragon with all the speed his legs could muster, he bent the arm carrying the sword behind his neck and threw it at the wretched reptile. A burst of fire melted his weapon long before it could do any damage. Pilate stopped as his bravery waned. With a thrust of leathery wings, the dragon leapt towards him, its long neck coiled like a cobra. Then the dragon's mouth opened, and torrents of flame poured out of its treacherous grin. Pilate screamed. The former governor sat up in bed with beads of sweat rolling down his face until they fell onto his bare chest. Heavy drums of rapid heartbeats yammered in his ears and caused him to take deep breaths of stale air to calm his fearful heart. Claudia stirred next to him, then lifted her head and whispered, "Are you okay?" Pilate felt her gentle touch on his chest, took in a few more deep breaths, and answered, "No, I am not okay. For the first time in many years, I had a dream that did not feature the Jew from Nazareth. In my dream, I watched a dragon kill Jupiter, and afterwards the vile creature set Olympus in flames." Claudia laid her head on his chest while her hands moved to his shoulders. "It was only a dream, my love. Your concern for what awaits us in our next post tainted your dream with fear and worry. I will have one of the servants bring us some wine to help you sleep." She rotated her head to face the entrance to their room and called out, "Come in and attend your master." The door creaked open, and a burly shadow approached their bed. "Yes, my lord. What may I do to serve you?" Pilate's wife answered in a curt tone, "First, you will light another candle so we can see better. After that, you will fetch us some wine." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Heresy guffawed as he watched Pilate's reaction to the dream. He and Squiff had spewed into the beleaguered man's mind. Our master's tactics worked perfectly. Soon this man will be so fragile, we will be able to finish our mission well enough for Satan to reward us. "As long as he doesn't send us back to the pits, I will be satisfied," Squiff said. "How much longer before Pilate will be ready?" Hard to say. Some days his guilt over the events surrounding the crucifixion makes him seem frail. Yet there are times his noble blood seems to make him impervious to our suggestions. We will continue to use our master's new technique until Pilate begs us to kill him.